as they say, be careful what you wish for.
Muriel. Looks like I'm next.
The first time I saw Muriel's Wedding, I treated it as a comedy, and then when you go back and watch it, it's a bit of a tragedy. It's quite a sad old story.
You never wear the right clothes. You're fat. Listen to 70s music. We don't want you hanging around us anymore.
It seems unfair to comment about a film when you found the characters in it thoroughly awful.
I said, yeah.
Yeah, well, so you should, you useless lump. Muriel's out there and she's made something of herself.
And she was the most useless one of all, wasn't she, Bill?
Certainly taking the piss out of Australian culture. Australians seem to do that very well. Very self-deprecating here.
A normally slender Toni Collette had to seriously upsize for her first starring role.
I didn't even think twice. It was just a part of the character. And
How much did you put in?
3 stone.
In how long?
A couple of months.
She looked horrific, really, didn't she? Brilliant, but horrific, yeah. I thought the costumes were great. That wedding dress was horrendous.
The use of the ABBA music was just very, very popular.
Every blonde-haired, brown-haired group of friends have all done that ABBA song like they did, so we were all crying with laughter the first time we saw it.
And it created that catchphrase. Whenever anybody did something wrong, what would they say?
You're terrible, Muriel.
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 Gabby Millgate must be hating that. People coming up to her in the street saying, "You're terrible, Muriel."
You couldn't have that success with a facile script. It's a brilliantly written script.
I've seen your wedding album. You've tried on every dress in Sydney.
Yes, some of us do go and try on wedding dresses. Nothing wrong with that.
I just love Toni Collette. The fragility and the entirety of that performance that she brought to that character.
Why can't it be me?
Toni Collette might have started off walking down the aisle, but now she and co-star Rachel Griffiths walk the red carpets of Hollywood.
What the bloody hell are you mob doing out here? Scared the shit out of me.
At number 19, a low-budget thriller about an outback serial killer preying on backpackers in Wolf Creek.
I agree with Quentin Tarantino, who has been quoted as saying, Wolf Creek is the scariest movie he's ever seen.
Leaving you, the audience, feeling that when you leave this theatre, there are people like that out there.
What do you actually do?
I can tell you. Then I'd have to kill you.
It's the only character I've ever played where I've had to kind of stay in character, because it's pretty hard to, you know, say, John, finish your coffee and come over here and cut someone up.
Bloody hell.
And the horror experience almost became a reality for one unlucky moviegoer.
There was this girl sitting in front of me and she wasn't coping with it at all. She was scared stiff and she went, oh, and then she couldn't stand it and she went, oh, and then she saw me and she went, oh, looked back, oh. So she trying to get away from me and turned around and looked at me, you know.
A subtle clue as to how close the movie reflects real-life events is in the name of the mine.
Today, 51-year-old Ivan Milat was found guilty of all charges.
Of course, the backpacker murders at the Belangolo Forest. Peter Falconio, Joanne Lee's story had recently been played out in the courts of the Northern Territory, and everything was so kind of fresh in our minds. And if they weren't, then this movie certainly dragged up memories of those stories, and it made it all way too real.
From what I can gather in my travels around the world, it's mostly not been a good advertisement for Australian backpacking.
Wild horses would not drag me to ever watch this film from what I hear about it, and its violence towards women, no.
It's just so brilliantly put together by Greg McLean, and it's shot in a sort of a newsreel kind of style that it has an absolute realism about it. It's like a docudrama.
It's high-definition video, not film, and it's being made by very much the next generation of filmmakers.
John Jarrett in Wolf Creek is positively evil.
I spent 6 months working on that chuckle, and it's, yeah, it's purposeful.
number 18, the movie that almost sent Aussie butchers broke. It's the story of a little pig suffering from an identity crisis. The one and only Babe.
The basic premise is that the pig wants to be a sheepdog, and instead of barking at the sheep like the dogs do and scaring them and making them feel bad, the pig be's nice to them and talks them into doing what they want. And it's probably a good way to get us to all think too.
Thanks very much. It was very kind of you. A pleasure. What a nice little pig.
When the connections are made between the farmer and the pig, it feels so right that these boundaries are being crossed. And that, I think, reflects our experience in life.
Everybody loved it. And you suspended belief and you got into the spirit of the film with wonderful performances by the pig, great performances by the live actors as well.
I love Magda, and that was wonderful too, to see Magda in a film that made it really big in America.
Oh, yes, yep, yep, yep. Who's going to grow up to be a big fat pig?
It was beautiful and imaginative and a real kind of fairy tale. Pity they had to use an American voice, but they did.
I want my mom.
That was a gorgeous film, though. Absolutely beautiful and quite groundbreaking as well. We'd never seen anything like that.
La la la, la la la, la la la, la la.
When they started making Babe, it wasn't technically possible to finish it. They had to actually develop the technology to have the animals talking. The whole animatronic thing was cutting edge.
I've never met a sheep with such a strong, dark face. Are they feeding you well?
But the Aussie ingenuity and hard work definitely paid off.
I'm afraid the best that I can do tonight is to say thank you all very much. It's very kind of you.
We love Babe. Put me off bacon for about a week. Should have been forever, I know, but I love pork products.
And Babe certainly brought home the bacon for its creators, earning $246 million worldwide.
That'll do, pig. That'll do.
That'll do, pig, indeed. At number 17, a movie loosely based on the life of best-selling author and ex-criminal Mark Brandon Reed, better known as Chopper, or Uncle Chop Chop.
Why would I shoot a bloke, bang, and then put him in the bloody car and whiz him off to the hospital at 100 miles an hour? It defeats the purpose of having shot him in the first place. Do I look like Mark Brandon Medicare Reed or something?
The film Chopper, Eric Bana, was one of the greatest performances in Australian history.
5 the doctors put in 2 grand each to have you knocked.
It's not bad. I should have a go at it myself.
Apparently the film was shot over a long period of time for budgetary reasons, but it also enabled Eric to, you know, really bulk up.
But he put on weight and his teeth. I mean, it was a fantastic transformation, particularly when you see photos of the real Chopper.
If I was to enter a Chopper Reed look-alike contest with Eric Bana, I would lose. That's how good he took me off.
It's all right, Casey. You're not going to bleed to death, mate. All right? They call the screws. The screws are coming.
One of the things that you notice about Chopper is you see all this violence, and it's quite confronting, the amount of violence in it. But the humour is really there. It's great, and I really enjoy films with black humour, and Chopper has plenty of it.
Oh, Keith, you know, I always thought I was a good bloke.
What'd you ever do that was good?
Well, I bashed you. That was good, wasn't it? It was good for a bit of a giggle anyway. Hey, Keithy?
One of the most chunder-making films I've ever seen. When Eric Bana starts cutting the ears, I'm sorry, too much for it. Put me off my Maltesers.
Trying to be gentle, mate.
I remember coming out of it and feeling, you know, quite shell-shocked as you do when something has created a world for you and then you're back in reality.
Just a great flick. Vince Cosimo, not here. Money, not here.
Here, there's no cash, all right? Cash, no. Robbo? No cash.
Our biggest concern was trying to ensure the Chopper didn't come out of it and feel that he'd been glorified or the public had felt he'd been glorified.
We've turned him into a bit of a cult hero, a folk hero, but then, you know, Ned Kelly wasn't exactly, you know, pure as a driven snow either, just quietly.
I would just like to point out that the opinions expressed by our experts and celebrities about Mr. Mark Chopper Reed are not necessarily the opinions of this network or of me personally. Especially me, Chopper. Still to come on 20 to 1 Great Aussie Movies.
I thought, who was this guy that made this movie?
But I want to dance with you, friend.
It was fantastic.
How come it grossed $100 million?
I wish I'd thought of it.
Welcome back to 20 to 1 as we celebrate Australian cinema.
La la la.
Fighting for its place at number 16, a disturbing insight into gang violence on the streets of Melbourne. But Romper Stomper is probably best remembered for launching one Russell Ira Crowe.
When I grew up in Footscray, and Russell Crowe's portrayal of that character, it actually scared me.
You felt sorry for these characters, these poor lost characters that were so vulnerable and trying to make their mark and trying to assert themselves.
Who the hell are you?
We came to wreck everything and ruin your life.
He and Jackie McKenzie together is a real electricity. Not difficult to get the electricity going with Jackie. She's fantastic.
I know a place you could do. It's better than anything you got on your minds.
I look back on it as probably one of the best experiences of filmmaking I've ever had. Still, years later.
Why didn't you love Mum? Did she know about us? Did she?
I was blessed to have that as a first-time filmmaking experience.
Russell Crowe proved in Romper Stomper that he had that ability to be very, very vicious, but still an audience would identify with him.
And it was very gritty. We had handheld cameras going the whole time, and really they were really rough with each other. Of course, they're actors, so they're not hurting each other, but it had to look real. This film, Romper Stomper, was, I think, the first that I'd ever seen or heard of that delved into a current racism.
Romper Stomper revealed a dark side of Australia, and I hope people took note of that.
Hey, no, they're in the front door!
When you get Russell Crowe to play a neo-Nazi, you're playing with fire, because a lot of people are going to identify with him. And even though he ends up badly in the film, a lot of people watch that film and say, I want to be there.
Controversy dogs the movie 14 years on, with some critics still condemning it for glorifying racism and violence. Taking off at number 15 is the tale of a free-spirited young boy isolated from day-to-day life, whose best friend is a pelican.
Storm Boy is a lovely film because it's a family picture without being treacly.
He's come back! Dad's come back! Mr. Percival's come back!
A lot of the time, I guess, the movies that I'd seen, I was really aware of me as an audience member and that as a show. And with Storm Boy, I was just totally enveloped in the story.
Oh, you're clever, Mr. Percival. You're terrific.
Beautiful film. And I love the natural aesthetics. Now, that was made in South Australia, and that deserved all the kudos.
And David Gulpilil, who is magic on screen. Wonderful. With no training, somehow he outacts anybody he's standing next to.
There's a saying in the business, don't get caught in a two-shot with David Gulpilil. You could be talking your head off and he can be standing in the background and all eyes are on him and they won't hear a word you're saying.
What happened when little fella tell lies? Spirit man, Dada could come at night and take him away.
The music is beautiful. It's very moody and warm, but it's also very heartbreaking in some aspects.
I think Storm Boy was the first thing I'd ever burst into tears over.
Was it him?
Yes. I pick him up and I bury him.
It's one of those films that I would still say, get the DVD, show it to your kids because it's a great movie.
Waltzing in at number 14, the movie that danced its way into our hearts. Yes, it's Strictly Ballroom.
Everybody walked out of that movie feeling great.
Beautifully written, wonderfully cast. You know, Paul Mercurio was fantastic. Tara Maurice, fabulous film.
Strictly Ballroom is a Cinderella story.
Boy dances, boy goes into a competition.
Boy loses dance partner, boy meets ugly duckling.
Who becomes the fabulous dancer at the end.
Beautifully cut, beautifully edited, beautifully shot. And the energy and chutzpah of the performances are very, very attractive.
He said he won't be dancing with Tina.
I heard.
Well, do something about it, you silly man.
Director Baz Luhrmann brought us into the world of dance by breaking it down to its basic level of rhythm.
I loved all that clapping, you know, out in the backyard. It was fantastic.
And how hot is Paul Mercurio in it? He's just dancing and dancing and dancing and dancing, and then he stops and he talks. He goes, "But I want to dance with you, friend."
Do you still want to dance with me?
But Paul Mercurio wasn't cast for his voice. His dancing in the film is mesmerising. John Paul Young's Love Is in the Air became the movie's signature tune.
People for months and years afterwards were saying to me, I saw you in that movie. And I'd always say, what movie? You know, they saw that clip and they, in their own minds, they thought they'd seen it in the movie, but they hadn't.
Entertainment is supposed to take you away from your everyday life, and this certainly did. I loved Strictly Ballroom.
At number 13, a movie the critics didn't think was such a bright idea, but audiences disagreed, and young Einstein went off with a bang.
Young Einstein, to me, has to be one of the most unlikely movies to become such a hit.
It was bizarre because the movie, it had such a ludicrous plot, but it somehow drew us in because it was so sort of charming and innocent.
And it was a really new vision and a wonderful vision. I loved seeing it. I thought it was very, very different. And who was this guy that made this movie?
This guy turned out to be Mr. Yahoo Serious. And yes, that is his real name.
Energy equals mass times the square of the speed of light.
Young Einstein, yeah, I thought that was ridiculous. How that, I didn't get into that at all. Yahoo Serious, you can't be serious, Yahoo, can you?
Look, Dad! Bubbles.
Young Einstein really connected with audiences, and I think they connect with Yahoo. They connect with that character who's just will not lie down.
It poked fun at everything in this sort of fantasy film, and for a minute and a half it was the talk of the town, and that, folks, was that.
Science, eh? I'm keenly interested. Pleased to meet you, Keenly.
There's nothing one can say about young Einstein, except it's a wonder that the State Theatre could ever progress beyond the awfulness it was subjected to with a film of that low quality.
I thought it was a fantastic movie, and everybody else bags it out. But really, if I'm the only person that liked it, how come it grossed $100 million?
I wish I'd thought of it. That's better than Lotto, that.
Yahoo made 2 more movies after Young Einstein, neither of which made our list. Seriously. Coming up next on 20 to 1.
It's the reason the film works.
Both their bottoms wobbling like plates of jelly.
Oh my God, when I was 13, I'd never seen anything like that.
Somehow it alienated me within a matter of minutes.
It's a fabulous scene.
Welcome back to 20 to 1 Great Aussie Movies, where we're celebrating the films that celebrate us. If you missed the start of tonight's main feature, here's a quick look at what's made our countdown so far. At number 20, Your Wonderful Muriel. At 19, The Predator of Wolf Creek. At 18, a real ham on screen. At 17, Here's a Good Movie. At 16, Inner City Warfare. At 15, It's Clear Sailing for Storm Boy. At 14, it's Strictly Brilliant. And at number 13, are you serious? At number 12, it's an Oscar-winning movie featuring a near-naked man on a trampoline. Nothing unusual about that, but it did launch a shining career for a wonderful man.
David! Is that you, Doctor? There's no more hot water, Sylvia. Where does it go?
David, I want you to meet someone.
There's no more hot water, Sylvia. It's all gone, all gone, all gone.
The movie Shine was inspired by the life of the gifted but troubled classical pianist David Helfgott.
Not a concerto. Swim la campanella.
Playing the teenage David Helfgott was the brilliant Noah Taylor.
Noah was sort of overlooked, but I think when you see that film now, you realise what an incredibly good actor Noah Taylor is.
His performance was so exquisite and so full of quiet passion, and the way he portrayed that artist, what a thing for Jeffrey to be able to come in and complete.
What we see on screen is a film made with great skill and great dedication.
Oh, sock it to us, Liberace.
That's enough.
I'd like to think that maybe a huge percentage of people who saw Shine came away feeling a little softer to their fellow man.
Will you marry me?
Stars, Gillian, the stars. It's all in the stars.
I don't know what to say. The stars, Gillian, darling. Ask the stars.
And that was so lovely because he was so childlike and took such delight in the simple things. That's what I loved about that film.
It certainly introduced Jeffrey Rush to the world as the amazing talent that he is.
Jeffrey Rush's performance wasn't an imitation, it was just a superb performance of that amazing man.
We can break through this silly old fog, can't we? We've got to follow, we've got to follow.
We'll be in the car.
Relax. Oh, relax. Miss Lynn, relax, Miss Lynn, relax.
His performance is the focus of the movie. It's the reason the film works. It's the reason the film became a success. It's the reason that he won an Academy Award for Best Actor.
And the Oscar goes to Jeffrey Rush and Shine.
Shine went on to win a further 38 awards, both here and overseas.
Shine.
Jeffrey Rush had the last word for those who ever doubted his talent.
And finally, to all those people who were happy to bankroll the film as long as I wasn't in it,
At number 11, a movie that really made waves. Based on a novel written by Kathy Lett and Gabrielle Carey, Puberty Blues gave us a glimpse at Sydney's surfing culture of the 70s. And boy, what a ride it was.
And it was such an authentic picture of that sort of surfy culture. And written from a girl's point of view, I found very interesting, because it was something I didn't know really anything about. And I thought this would make a fantastic film.
We finished. And that was the courting ceremony in Sylvania Heights, where I grew up. Well, at least I was doing something on Saturday nights.
I think the girls were Jad Capella and Nell Schofield when they were teenagers, playing teenagers. Excellent performances.
Strack, lend us your board?
What for?
We want to have a go.
What, you bum?
There's a part of me that's really sad that the Bogan's dead. You know, I really miss the Bogan, and I think that Puberty Blues had all that great language in it that I still use, you know, dead set, fish face, mole.
Box tosser? Yeah, fish face, mole.
I love that, the fact that they were able to get such, you know, what seemed to me to be realistic dialogue.
Will you go round with me?
Yeah.
One of the lines in it that just sticks in my head is, go and get me a Chico roll and don't eat any of it.
Oh, yeah, and don't forget the sauce. And don't take any bicycles on the way back, all right?
Puberty Blues was about a time when girls really just did what they were told and sat on the beach. And Puberty Blues was about a sexual and a social revolution.
Wish we had a board. Why don't we ask if we can have a loan of one? Girls don't surf.
People used to think that Puberty Blues really reflected the beach culture. Maybe at the time it did, but it doesn't anymore. We have to grow up, people.
That still goes on in Australia. You know, there are some girls out there that get treated like that by their boyfriends and just by society in general. So I think that's something that needs to be addressed. I did feel sorry for those girls.
At number 10, mateship and isolation in the heart of Australia.
The title, Sunday Too Far Away, is from the shearer's wife's lament. Friday night, too tired. Saturday night, too drunk. Sunday, too far away, because they've gone back to the shed.
You can do films about the outback and show nothing but the outback. You've got to have a story. And Sunday Too Far Away had a great story.
The basic story of Sunday Too Far Away is the story of Foley, a gun shearer, who decides to come back and do sort of one last run and to put the money away and retire, which is sort of the dream of every shearer.
You scabs! That's what you are! You're the lowest form of life!
It's so authentically Australian. The writer, John Dingwall, wrote it based on the experiences of his brother, who'd been through the big shearers' strikes in the 1950s. And it was really written with the rattle of the shearing sheds and the smell of the sheep.
Take it easy, old bastard.
And yourself.
Great collective effort from the actors, really wonderful atmosphere.
I grew up in the country when I was little, and a lot of the characters rang true with me. I think it was beautifully directed by Ken Hannon.
Anyway, that's the vote.
Wait a minute. What am I going to tell him?
Tell him to go home, put his feet up and count his money.
Never liked it. I didn't like the subject matter. Somehow it alienated me within a matter of minutes.
This international hit is probably best remembered for one very cheeky scene indeed.
My favourite scene is when Johnny Hewitt and Jack do the washing competition. Everything's a competition.
And it's a battle of the buttocks. It's without any word, just the music and the shaking buttocks.
Both their bottoms wobbling like plates of jelly in different rhythms.
It's a fabulous scene.
It was a much younger us.
After Sunday Too Far Away, Jack Thompson's buttocks were declared a national treasure. And I'm glad that's all we saw. More Aussie movies ahead on 20 to 1.
There was movement at the station. How's the Serenity?
Australian men love to get in a dress.
That was one ugly, ugly woman.
It's got to be one of my favourites because I was in it.
Welcome back to 20 to 1, Great Aussie Movies. While the world sees Australia as rugged and macho, one of our most successful films was the colourful, beautiful story of two drag queens and a transsexual in the desert.
I hereby christen this budget Barbie camper Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
I always thought it was a very clever, very funny script, and with a kind of touch of pathos about it.
There are some incredibly powerful images in that film. You know, the bus and the flag going along.
Australian men love to get in a dress. Come on. You just got to admit, we're a really gay country, you know. The Sydney Gay Mardi Gras, the mateship thing. It's a very bloke with bloke country.
Of course, a wonderful soundtrack of songs that just went straight to the heart of things and over the top. I mean, the whole thing was so wonderfully over the top.
With a budget of just $12,000, the costume designers made their money go a long way. All the way to Hollywood, in fact.
And the Oscar goes to Lizzie Gardner and Tim Chappell for The Adventures of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
But like any success story, there's always the odd critic.
I wasn't happy with Terence Stamp playing me because that was one ugly, ugly woman.
It was such an original idea by Stephen Elliott, and again, wonderful casting, just a defining seminal Australian movie.
A desert holiday, let's pack the drag away.
It was wonderful that Stephen Elliott cast Guy Pearce in that role, because a lot of people might not have given him an opportunity because he came from soap.
Could I please have...
No! You can't have nothing. We've got nothing here for people like you. Nothing.
It was flashy enough to get the people in, but then it had a message, which I think so paved the way for so much more tolerance and acceptance.
When I heard the title of this next movie, I thought, at last they've made a movie about me. You got it. My Brilliant Career.
story of my career.
At number 8, it's a period drama that cleverly addressed issues of a changing nation at the time of its release.
A real movie with a message about feminism in the 70s, where a young woman gives up love to pursue her career.
Universal stories like My Brilliant Career work because it knows no national boundaries.
I want to be a writer. At least I'm going to try. But I've got to do it now. And I've got to do it alone.
My Brilliant Career is the aspirations of Australians as a middle-class intellectual society.
I want to do great things, Gertie. Not be a servant. I hate this life.
And Judy Davis was very good in that, wasn't she?
Do you want to be a burden on your family forever? With no status in decent society or a home of your own?
I will not be married off to someone I detest by you or anybody.
If she had never done anything else, she would have been acclaimed as one of the great performances in film.
It's probably the best thing I've ever seen her do, actually. Regardless of the one since, I still think that's probably my favourite of her roles.
Frances O'Connor, Rachel Griffiths, me, Kate, we're all told, oh, you're the next Judy Davis. Is she the next Judy Davis? And it was like, leave Judy Davis alone. Judy Davis is here, alive and well, and probably the best actress our country will ever see.
This next movie is based on a poem written by Australia's most famous bush poet, Banjo Paterson.
There was a movement at the station, for the word had passed around that the colt from Old Regret had got away. He had joined the wild bush horses. He was worth £1,000.
At number 7, The Man from Snowy River, the movie that brought Banjo Paterson's words to life.
It's become the sort of legend that we all like to think is the real Australia. Well, of course it's not.
It's what we believe Australia is and what we are. You know, we could get on the horse and crack the whip and whatever. I mean, few of us have.
When we were making it, we had no idea that it was going to be taken to the hearts of the Australian people as it was. Absolutely beautiful. In reality, expertly filmed the landscape by Keith Wagstaff, the director of photography.
The action's great, the horse riding's fantastic, the story's wonderful, but the music...
There's a piece of music you can't not be moved by. The minute that starts, you go, oh, that's right, I remember. We are a tough culture.
Well, The Man from Snowy River. It's got to be one of my favourites because I was in it.
Come on, Jessica, back to bed. Oh, no, I'm sick of secrets.
Jessica, get to bed, and both of you, get out of here, or I'll... You what?
To help sell the movie internationally, producers wrangled a cranky Kirk Douglas to play 2 roles.
He wasn't an easy man on the set, and he had already the reputation to try to dominate situations.
And I can be here. Oh, you see, when... where's Tony? Tony Bonner.
Icy calm, boys. Icy calm.
Australia's own big gun actors also saddled up for the ride.
Jack Thompson as Clancy. Nobody could have been better than Jack Thompson as Clancy.
But it was Tom Burlinson and Sigrid Thornton who really captured our hearts.
That was the first thing I'd ever seen Sigrid Thornton in, and of course, all the girls in my class, we all wanted to be Ziggy.
And all the boys wanted to ride like Jim Craig.
Lots of people say that is the best horse action that's ever been filmed.
And there was movement at the box office, for the word of mouth had passed around. And the movie ran in cinemas for a year, unheard of at that time. Still to come on 20 to 1.
One of our all-time great movies.
It changed our lives.
Blindingly original films.
Mel Gibson in leather pants.
And every man ran into the street screaming.
Good evening, Ray Deneen with NBN News. Australian of the Year Tim Flannery has revealed he considered handing back his award in protest after Prime Minister Howard said the economy was more important than climate change. 3 Australian soldiers have been wounded in a roadside bombing in Iraq. Students at Virginia Tech in the United States have made a difficult return to their academic work after a memorial service was held to remember the 32 victims of the country's worst campus shooting. Millions of Australians are preparing to honour our servicemen and women on Anzac Day, with thousands making the pilgrimage to Turkey despite security concerns. And I'll be back with another look at NBN News just after 9 o'clock.
Welcome back to 20 to 1, counting down the very best Aussie movies. At number 6, Edward Woodward's powerful portrayal of Harry Breaker Morant, one of 3 Aussie soldiers accused of murder during the Boer War at the end of the 19th century.
Discipline in the army was fierce in those days, and I believe anything that smacked of a revenge killing, which the men were virtually accused of, did attract the ultimate penalty.
There are several murder charges. The penalty is death.
There was a wonderful shoot, and Bruce Beresford had it beautifully worked out. We had a fine technical crew, Don McAlpin on camera.
They're part of the group that killed Simon Hunt.
How can you be sure?
Kelly's commandos. The rest have disbanded or moved into Portuguese territory. Execute them.
Aren't we supposed
This is
to
a
take
guerrilla war, not a debutante's ball.
Breaker Morant's amazing to me because he was a war criminal and he's been made an icon, a hero. But if you look at him, he killed innocent people.
We caught them and we shot them under Rule 303.
It changed our lives, and it changed the perception of Australian filmmaking in the eyes of America and the rest of the English-speaking world.
Why would an officer of Captain Hunt's spotless reputation invent an order, sir?
One of the most moving parts of the film to me is when the 2 men are walking away from the camera towards the chairs, and their hands touch and they hold each other's hands like 2 children.
And that occurs as a result of something that the actors came up with themselves. They felt that there should be some way in which they made contact.
That's astounding that they decided to hold hands and later found out that that was an actual historic fact. Makes you wonder how far into the skin of those characters they got.
Aye! Shoot straight, you bastards! Don't make a mess of it!
In 1979, Australia was introduced to Mel Gibson, playing a young cop avenging the death of his family. He was Mad Max.
I think we have to say Mel Gibson was always going to make it, but Mad Max is such an iconic film that there was no way he was going to disappear into the shadows after that.
The director of photography, whose name's David Egby, had a tremendous amount of experience in Australian film, and his knowledge and expertise really contributed a vast amount to the success of the action in that movie.
Well, Mad Max and the sequel, of course, at the time were just seen as a fanciful sci-fi notion. Now they're seen as a documentary about the effects of spiralling petrol prices.
I didn't like it. I found it ugly and horrendous, and it was just sort of opening your mind to horror and violence and ugliness, and I really am not into that.
Mel Gibson in leather pants. Never a reason to turn away there. That's just worth the price of rental, I'd say.
When Mad Max screened in America, there were some problems with the soundtrack.
When the movie was released, sent to America, they dubbed it all into American accents.
Someone decided they couldn't understand our accent, which was crap.
You okay, Goose?
Nothing a year in the tropics wouldn't fix.
Some Texan did Steve Bisley's, and he said, well, why didn't they give me a chance to do the Texan accent?
And by the time we got to him, he was just sitting there trying to scream with his face.
They were blindingly original films when they first came out. Was it a period when all we seemed to make was slow motion, soft focus films about schoolgirls in the 1890s, and then Mad Max just tore right through it.
Mad Max was more than an action movie. It was the quintessential action movie because in Hollywood, from then on, they realised you just couldn't have people chasing over rooftops and car chases. You had to have more. It actually changed the way action films were made.
At number 4, the movie that led director Peter Weir to be hailed as the new Hitchcock by Hollywood.
Picnic at Hanging Rock, all the girls went for a picnic and disappeared.
Don't worry about us, mademoiselle. We shall only be gone a little while.
Had the right cast, everything about Picnic Hanging Rock I thought was fine, and I appreciate it as a work of cinematic artistry, if you like.
A key to the film's success was the blurring of the lines between fact and fiction.
I think everybody thought it was a true story, and that's made that rock or wherever it is famous, and people go to see it, and it's a bit spooky, but it was all nonsense. It was made up.
I can only say that for me, fact and fiction are so closely allied. Some of it really happened, and some of it didn't.
People go, oh, what really, did that really happen? So you get that did that really happen syndrome happening, and that fixes the box office pretty well.
To St. Valentine. To St. Valentine.
Picnic at Hanging Rock is about a group of schoolgirls who vanish, mysteriously vanish. And I can say that that's what happened to the film careers of most of the actresses in this. And it's amazing because at the time they were all hailed as they're going to be huge stars internationally, and none of them ever were.
Thankfully, not all of the film stars vanished from our screens.
It was a fantastic film to be on, and still one of the best jobs I've ever been in.
Madame, something terrible has happened.
Picnic at Hanging Rock, I think, was an extraordinarily important film, and it also revealed that extraordinary talent of Peter Weir's.
You know what I really love about Picnic at Hanging Rock is that when Peter recut it and produced the director's cut, he made it shorter. And that's like unprecedented for a director's cut to be shorter than the original.
I remember the music was so haunting. Didn't they have a panpipe or something through it, I think?
Every chick in 1975 went out and bought an album of wretched pan flutes after that. And every man ran into the street screaming. Miranda really annoyed me. I didn't mind in the end that she disappeared because I was a bit sick of her and I wanted the movie to end.
Miranda, don't go out there! Come back!
After the break, we reveal our top 3 Aussie movies. Welcome back to 20 to 1. Tonight we've been paying homage to some of Australia's greatest films. And at number 3, it's a movie about an average family in an average city living an average life. But the castle is anything but average.
My name is Dale Kerrigan, and this is my story.
Although the castle was shot in just 11 days, the Kerrigan family's fight to keep their home will be remembered forever.
Shall we? Let's dig it up.
This isn't a big-budget movie, but it's a movie that absolutely works.
But they're jousting sticks. I mean, what would anyone want with jousting sticks?
Well, if you get them for half price, it's a bargain.
I think the castle accurately and very wittily reflects the realities of Australian life.
It's about standing up for what you think is right and making your voice heard. And that message, we could do with a little bit of that at the moment, don't you think?
It captured a piece of Australia, didn't it? It captured that idea, and it was charming.
Oh, Steve, could you move the Chimera? I need to get the Tirana out so I can get to the Commodore.
I'll have to get the keys to Cortina. I'm going to move that Chimera.
Yeah, watch the boat, mate.
Yeah.
That script is a perfectly honed feature film script.
I don't think a syllable was changed from the original script. We were so respectful of that script. And Rob Sitch and that production team turned out to be really terrific film producers.
They say the plane, they fly overhead, drop the value. I don't care. In Beirut, plane fly overhead, drop bomb. I like this plane.
Good point, mate. You know, there's really not that much to complain about here.
And we have the castle to thank for many Aussie sayings still in use today.
That goes straight to the pool room.
This is going straight to the pool room.
How's the Serenity?
How's the Serenity?
Ah, the Serenity.
How's the Serenity?
Everyone knows the Kerrigans. You know, we've all got a bit of Daryl Kerrigan in us.
Ergonomic chairs. 4 of them. What do you want? 180.
Tell him he's dreaming.
Tell him he's dreaming.
He's dreaming.
It was a wonderful film and a fantastic cast. I wish we could write more comedies like that.
Shot, Dale.
Australians do like to laugh at themselves. They don't like being laughed at, but they don't mind laughing at themselves.
Suffering your jocks.
Out of the way, Dopey.
There was nothing dopey about Paul Hogan's blockbuster. Audiences the world over were charmed by the lovable bush larrikin, Mick Crocodile Dundee.
2 beers, Hyde. 1 for me, 1 for me, mate.
I know a lot of Australians probably would have seen it as being a cliche of Australian culture, but in terms of overseas perception of Australians, it's really been very positive.
It just hit a chord. Australia was just the flavour of the month, of course, on the back of all those shrimp on the barbie ads and Australia winning the America's Cup, and Hogs came in with just a right time, right place.
And anybody that invested, I think you only had to invest maybe $10,000 in the movie, and you got $1 million out of it.
Not me, I didn't put a cent into it. I was asked, but I said no. What an idiot. God.
Sure, why not? Put it this way, it'd be the last thing you try.
There was the most incredible cinematography. It was really beautifully shot. What better advertisement can you get for the Australian outback?
And Linda Kozlowski with that G-string. Oh my God, when I was 13, I'd never seen anything like that.
That was all right. That would explain your crocodile attacks.
That's not a knife.
That's not a knife.
That's not a knife.
That's not a knife.
This is a knife.
This is a knife.
This is a knife.
That's a knife.
In 50 years' time, people will see those films and laugh.
I haven't got the words that I like to use on television to describe my reactions to Crocodile Dundee and its successes.
I don't think they were trying to make the world's greatest film. They were just making a good yarn. And it was good fun. I liked it.
I really liked him walking on the people's shoulders like sheep. I thought it was a really beautiful image, really great, and at the time, it was the end of the movie, it was very uplifting, and yeah, man, yeah, walk on those guys' heads. That rocks.
Crocodile Dundee made $350 million at the US box office for Paul Hogan and his band of investors. And 20 years later, it remains the most successful Aussie movie of all time. Now that's a profit.
If you only had one idea in your life and it was Crocodile Dundee, you'd be pretty happy with it.
What are your legs?
Springs. Steel springs.
What are they going to do?
Hurl me down the track.
At number 1, Peter Weir's brilliant and moving Gallipoli. The iconic tale of young Aussies heading off to fight a battle they were never going to win.
Churchill thought that if the Allies could somehow capture Constantinople, then the capital of Turkey, and knock Turkey out of the war, then the war could be shortened dramatically. Terrific theory, appalling in practice, but it has, of course, become such a pivotal event in our history.
Peter Weir, he's such a wonderful movie maker, and I think Gallipoli has got to be one of our all-time great movies.
Gallipoli was, for the first time, a touching war film. I mean, up till then that would have been an oxymoron, but it wasn't. It showed a whole different side to war, and these young guys going off to die, and for what?
You know, we've sort of remember Gallipoli through the combined images of the film and the music.
25 years on, Gallipoli is educating a whole new generation on the tragedies of war, with thousands of young Aussies heading to Turkey every year to pay their respects to our fallen heroes.
That was a brilliant movie because it put you right there, and the horror of it was not lost on any of us. It was deeply moving.
We were in the trenches, in those stinking, blood-soaked trenches, and waiting for our turn as a viewer to jump to the top of the trenches and make our dash and not get very far.
Everyone nervous and crying and kissing their photos and sticking them on the wall with a knife. Oh my God, it's just horrific. And they're only 17, 18-year-old boys.
I don't suppose any of us will ever forget the last minute of Gallipoli. It's engraved on our visual cortex.
Gallipoli ended suddenly and shockingly, poetically echoing the end of so many young men's lives.
That actual final shot of Mark Lee was actually based on a photograph taken by a photographer named Robert Capa, who took some shots during the Spanish Civil War, and he took a photo at the very moment the guy was shot, and that's what that last shot in the movie Gallipoli was based on.
That is the most moving final scene of any film. A very worthy number one. Next time on 20 to 1, we're counting down $20 billion ideas.
Hello, new era.
We all need some help.
But they still stink like, oh my God.
From the latest gadgets.
I love them.
To some old favourites.
It was a whole dialing experience.
It's amazing.
So sassy.
We've got fun for the whole family.
Let's go to Mars.
It was such a mystery. Some things just for the bedroom.
Unless you're by yourself, I don't really see how you could do it.